Evaluation plays a critical role in addressing global governance challenges. Public policy evaluation has become a crucial tool of enhancing governance and ensuring effectiveness of policies. In order to further enhance exchanges of evaluators from all over the world, the 2024 National Evaluation Capacities Conference is held in Beijing from October 14th to 18th. And during the conference, China Talk has invited Ms. Isabelle Mercier, Director of UNDP Independent Evaluation Office, to share her evaluation of this year's NEC conference, Chinese modernization, as well as China's efforts in energy transition. Good afternoon, Ms. Mercier. It's a great pleasure to have you today here in our program.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here.
I have heard your insightful remarks in the morning, but maybe some of our audience are not so familiar with the concept and the significance of evaluation capacity. So would you please briefly explain it to us why it is so important?
Well, I'll start with a little bit about why evaluation is important, and then I'll talk about why evaluation capacity building is something different, and equally, if not more important. So evaluation is the research work that you do to find out what programs and initiative, what government programs and initiative works for who, what the results are, and what are the gaps, what isn't working. And evaluation through research comes up with recommendations to governments on how to do better. Evaluation capacity is not just about doing good evaluations, but it's about a government's ability to take on the recommendations of evaluations, to learn from evaluations and integrate the findings and the insights from evaluations and plan better programs. And ultimately, the goal is so that the people who benefit from government programs and initiatives can really benefit the most, so that there's less waste of money, and so that there's less opportunity for doing poorly. At its core, evaluation is both for accountability, but also for learning. And I think that's where evaluation really shines.
So learning from what? From the past experience? From the evidence?
That's exactly right. Evaluation is about evidence-based decision-making. So when you look at what's happened in the past, and understand it, you can plan better for the future.
How would it contribute to achieving the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals?
I think they're essential to achieving the SDGs. The SDGs themselves call for what we say is a data revolution. So there's a clear link between better evidence and better data and the achievement of the SDGs. And that's because they're very hard to achieve. So you need to really understand what is working to be able to make the very best decisions possible. Right now we know the SDGs are in peril, and we really need to work collectively to do our very best to put them back on track. And I think the very best way to do that is to collect data, to collect evidence, and to make evidence-informed decisions about what to do next. What's interesting about evaluation is that it's not just one point of view, not just one data point. Instead, it's very holistic in its approach. So it uses multiple lines of evidence to come up with a more holistic portrait of what's going on. This is particularly important when we think about data points. Perhaps those data points aren't telling the whole story. When you collect multiple data points and multiple points of view, what we call inclusive evaluation, then you start understanding what's working not just for the most, but for the people who are furthest left behind, so that you can make informed decisions that will help those people, the people who are the most vulnerable.
This is the first time for China to host an NEC conference. So what are the targets and highlights of this year's conference?
This is the largest NEC conference ever. We have over 500 participants coming from over 100 countries, and I think that is very impressive, and that was absolutely done with the help of SIDCA, who supported us and was very ambitious in having a conference that brought together as many people as possible. Because we believe fundamentally that this sort of work is best done together. This is about breaking our silos, our different silos between different systems and between different countries, and really exchanging with each other and learning from each other. We have a lot of governments represented from the Global South, and I think there's a great opportunity for China to show their partners in the Global South how they've started to integrate evaluation into their government processes. And I think that's very exciting for the audience members here. In terms of other targets, I think it's vastly the same as the very first National Evaluation Capacity Conference, and that is all about exchange. Exchange, meeting with people, not just evaluators, but other governments, because producing evaluation is only part of the equation. What we need is policymakers who are able to understand what evaluation is and how they could use it to make better informed decisions.
And what have you brought to this year's conference?
Well, we're going to talk about inclusion because that's very important. Inclusion, as I said before in my earlier responses, inclusion is about ensuring that we hear from all the voices, not just the majority, but people who are perhaps coming from more vulnerable populations, women, youth, the disabled. It's really important to understand the points of view of different people so that we could have government programs that work for everyone. So inclusion is something that's very important. We're also going to talk about technology. Technology is revolutionizing all of our lives, and it will most certainly revolutionize how we do evaluation. So we want to make sure we understand as a community what are the benefits, the potential benefits of technology like AI, which we're all very excited about, and what are the challenges in overcoming that and how we could really leverage artificial intelligence and different tools that technology allows us to do our work and to be better evaluators.
I know this is your second time to visit China, so what is China like from your perspective?
China is beautiful. It's beautiful. It has an amazing mix of modernity and ancient history, which has really impressed me. And the people are very, very friendly. Each time I visit China, I'm captivated by how stunningly beautiful its cities and landmarks are. Before joining the conference, I just spent a day in Beijing, and I was fascinated by the richness of Chinese history, the architecture and its ancient buildings, but also how quiet the street sounded with all the electric vehicles. It was remarkable for me to learn that in China, more than 1 in 3 new car registrations last year was electric. I don't think I've ever seen as many electric vehicles in a city. It made it a very quiet and very pleasant place to be. And I think that is due, in large part, to the presence of electric vehicles. It transforms a city. And it is, to be honest, a very huge surprise for me. As someone who hadn't been to China before, I didn't know that this was happening. But I see and I'm impressed at the impacts. Just as a general person walking the streets, it is so much more pleasant. And you could see, if this is the future, I think China's making great strides in showing the world what the future can look like. And of course, coming over here to Yanqing, you see the beautiful mountain scenery, which is a difference. It's a vast difference from the center of the city, but quite a lovely place to be in. And of course, the impressive Great Wall of China has been a personal thrill to visit.
Now, China is pursuing Chinese modernization in all fronts. And I know that one of the sessions of today's conference is focused on the evaluation advances Chinese modernization. So would you please share with us your perspective, your understanding, and your evaluation of Chinese modernization?
Well, I'm an evaluator. And so I'm going to refrain from talking about my opinions on China's modernization. But I can tell you, we have done some work looking at what our evaluations are saying. I'm also deeply impressed by China's substantial investments in research and experimental impact studies, which I understand to be an important part of China's modernization. To me, these efforts underscore the importance that the Chinese government attaches to public policy evaluation and a genuine commitment to evidence-based decision-making. I'm deeply interested in getting to know more about how the Chinese government will work with academia and other partners in evaluating its modernization efforts. This morning, we just had a very insightful session on it. To me, it was very inspiring to hear that the Chinese government is putting evaluation at the forefront of its modernization efforts, particularly around its goals of common prosperity for all and harmony between humanity and nature, which are at the core of the Sustainable Development Goals.
I've noticed that one of the 70 goals of the 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development is clean energy. Actually, China has done great efforts in energy transition. The electric vehicles all around the streets of China is great evidence. So how would you evaluate China's new energy products, such as the EVs? Is it a blessing or a curse or challenge to the world?
Well, turning to cleaner energy is the only path towards a greater future and the reduction of carbon dioxide emissions. This is clear. And it's also clear that the success or failure of China's energy transition will be a determining factor in the global fight against climate change, given that China is among the world's largest greenhouse gas emitters. I'm afraid I don't have the information to be able to fully evaluate China's path towards cleaner energy, and so I cannot answer your question, but I can share with you what our evaluations of the UNDP support to China's efforts in this area include. Our evaluations acknowledge that China has emerged as a global leader in climate change mitigation, thanks to its ambitious environmental policies to combat pollution and reduce carbon emissions. China is also the largest producer of renewable energy, and it has a massive capacity to produce and use electric and fuel cell vehicles. And our evaluations also recognize that UNDP has played a key role in supporting China's journey towards this transition, including through the development of fuel cell industry and demonstration projects which resulted in new rules on clean energy, automotive enterprises and products. The path towards carbon neutrality requires significant investments, but I'm hopeful that with UNDP as a partner, China will achieve this goal by 2060.
Thank you so much for accepting our interview and bring very insightful ideas to us. Thank you.